What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another live episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And today, of course, it is a very, very special show as we're joined by our friend Kerri Rawson. She is the daughter of the notorious serial killer Dennis Rader, who gave himself the moniker BTK for bind, torture, and kill, the way he murdered his victims. BTK is now the prime suspect in two unsolved killings, one in Oklahoma and another in Missouri, leading authorities to dig this past week near Kerri's childhood home in Park City, Kansas. And he's also being looked at as a suspect in at least three other cold cases, now making it 5 in total. So if you missed that, 5 total cases in total. I guess that is redundant, but that is the deal. This is Kerri's first on-cam interview since her dad is back in the news almost daily. And then joining us right now, of course, you've got Jennifer Koffendorfer, looking elegant as always. She had a career in federal law enforcement that spanned over 28 years and included extensive investigative operational leadership and other training experiences. She was a FBI special agent working on gangs, narcotics, and organized crime. And then we might be joined, or we might not, by Cheryl Mack McCullum, an active crime scene investigator. And anytime you ask an active crime scene investigator, there's a chance that there's going to be a crime scene. And we think that's what's going on with Mac. And so she is running late, and hopefully she'll make it, but we don't know for sure.
She says trying was her last text. I don't know if she's trying to connect or she's trying to get on. I did send her the link and told her it needed to go through Google. So I don't know. You're probably gonna have to check on her, Joel.
All right, and I think I just saw a flash of her actually, and then the COE is helping behind the scenes with that. And just a quick programming note: Koff is going to have to jump off for a few minutes around 50 after the hour, and then might hop back on. So there you go. She's on a competing network of ours. I like to think of it as a competing network. They don't, but I do. A couple quick programming notes. You can find us on Instagram. I just posted all the wedding pictures I was dragged to at Surviving the Survivor. Great time, actually. If you haven't been to Idaho, you got to go. It's beautiful. Twitter, we are at Podcast STS. The one and only. There she is. You hear, Mac?
I'm here now.
Awesome. Always. We thought you were at a crime scene, so we made an excuse for you, but no crime scene. So glad to have you.
This is a crime scene.
This is a crime scene. You can support us at Patreon, on YouTube. The merch store is open. The COE is always rotating fun little things in and out. To my esteemed panel, please, if you don't mind, just keep yourselves on mute, and then we'll unmute as we go, if that's cool. I'm just going to lay this down real quick, and then we're going to get Kerri into the mix, and Mac and Koff. As we mentioned in the intro, there are 5 potentially new victims, all related to Dennis Rader, otherwise known as Kerri Rawson's father. The 5 right now are Cyndi Kinney, who went missing in 1976 from Oklahoma from a laundromat. Another missing woman from Hays, Kansas, went missing in 1983. Shauna Garber went missing from Missouri in 1990. And it's interesting because around that time, Dennis Rader, a.k.a. BTK, was in that very area. And then there's another unsolved murder in Kansas. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I believe an Oklahoma case. So we're going to have Kerri explain all of this. That is the tweet from Kerri Rawson, kind of doing the breakdown. So, Kerri, first an obvious question. As STS knows, you and I are friends. You're very tight with Mac, who kind of mentors you in a way, as well as Koff. So that's why we've invited them on as well, not to mention their best guests. And I love both of them also. Kind of a safe space. So we really want to thank you because this is your first on-camera interview since all of this news broke. You were down and out. You had COVID, you had bronchitis, you had it all. How are you feeling right now? Oh, you got to unmute.
There we go. I have new headphones and I can't just reach up and unmute. But all the media was yelling at me about my cord, so I literally got new headphones so people stop yelling at me about the cord.
Tell them to buzz
I'm doing
off.
yeah, I'm doing okay. I've got bronchitis, so I'm chewing on a cough drop right now, so that's that sound. But I'm doing okay. Like to the everyone watching in the chat, these three people right here keep me alive, literally like every day. Like Cough is like a big sis. Joel's like a father, even though he's probably not that much older than me. But like other people are like, Joel, your father is like checking and telling you you need to go to bed. And then Mac is like my CSI mama, and she's literally texting me like, do I need to come down to Florida and take your phone away? So like that's why I wanted to be on here with you guys. And like reality was I was supposed to be doing massive media yesterday, and then I was too sick. So Joel did get the first on camera. Like we were trying to like scheme that, and then it just worked out. But
Yeah.
I'm doing okay.
Glad to hear you sound better. On top of everything else, Anna Lisette, I hope the brewing tropical storm and hurricane stay down south. We got the tail end of one here. Long story short, Idalia happens to be the COE's best friend here in Miami. That is her actual name. She wanted to come on the podcast tonight. I told her to buzz off, but it is moving up to it has just moved up to a 2. It's supposed to become a 3, and who knows? The waters are 100 degrees on the east side. It's going up the west side of Florida, and it could impact Kerri Rawson. Kerri, please refer to me as your older brother, not father, or I'll have to take legal action. And let's make sure that that storm stays away from Orlando, because on top of everything else, that's the last thing Kerri needs. Shell Mac McCollum, you're our designated big mama bear for all of us. How stressful do you think this is for Kerri? She's right in front of me, and I could ask her, but you're the mama, and she's getting sick, and she's worn down, and we keep yelling at her to stop tweeting, texting, and doing all this media. But what advice do you have for her, Mac?
I cannot imagine that you are going to meet with your father who you have not seen in 18 years. That by itself would be stressful, as you said. On top of that, you're meeting with him because potentially you're going to help law enforcement tie him to additional murders. Now you've got that reality on top of there's going to be other families that you're going to become aware of, and then you're going to become aware of other facts of those cases that are going to be horrendous and horrific that you can't get out of your head. Then you've got somebody that you're working with, and you've kept this quiet for months and months and months. And see, people are like, oh, well, this broke on this day and this happened. But Kerri's been living this for 5 months, 9 months, a year, a long time, y'all. She's been working. She's been traveling. She had a, protective order that said no contact. You cannot contact your daughter at all. She got the governor to lift that. Well, that's stressful too. And she then had to pull up to a prison. I mean, El Dorado isn't like she's going to go meet her dad at Cracker Barrel. So she's got to go to a prison. She's got to go through the system of showing ID and going through all that, and then walking into that room, and there he is. And for her, you're talking about this dual person for her. This is the man that held her up to put the star on top of the Christmas tree. This is the man that taught her to fish. This is the man that taught her to ride a bike. This is the man that protected her. And at the same time, here's this man that murdered people that some she knew, some she didn't know. And now all these memories are coming back where Kerri is the only eyewitness. She's the only eyewitness that can remember this item and this item and these items and how they now fit. So when you want to talk about stress, baby, I don't think we're close to what she's going through. And then on top of it, she gets COVID. And what does she do from her hospital bed? Writes a freaking press release and is answering the phone to all these folks. And, I think, and I've said it before, she's one of the bravest people that I know, because a lot of people that have a deep, dark secret, whatever it is, they don't want to tell anybody. And they certainly don't want to broadcast it, and they don't want to go on TV. But she's willing to do that, not for any gain, except to help other people she's never met.
I'll make one little addendum to the great Max overture just now, and that is that really Kerri's been dealing with this for the last really her whole life, but out in the open for the last for the last 18 years.
I meant the new thing, the new thing that, you know, this isn't in her book. This isn't anything we've ever heard before. Yeah. She's been basically working undercover, which again, alone is stressful.
Yeah. And I like to, I'm going to let Kerri, you know, fill us all in on when she got involved in this latest round of cold cases and all that. We'll break it all down. Lulu, love this. Hello from Denmark. I was heading to bed, but then I saw Kerri's going to be on. Screw Joel, but I love her. Sleep is for the weak. Yes, it is. Jennifer Coffendoffer, I look at all your guys' tweets. I like to do that before a show. And you tweeted, we're going to get to all this, but part of what is cracking this open is some of Dennis Rader's writings that they have now went back through, I imagine. So Coffendoffer tweeted, bothersome, ! 1976 writings. I was recently asked if BTK's writings that led to the new lead concerning the Cyndi Kinney murder were recently found. I said I would believe so based on it making no sense for law enforcement to sit on such facts. Now we know law enforcement did sit on important clues from BTK's journal that weren't followed up until now, as head shaking of a circumstance as the sheriff playing with recovered evidence. Anyway, Jen, please explain that. And it struck me, they've had these journals for seemingly ever. Why now? Why look at these journals now and discover something new now?
Well, all I can say is, in my opinion, and I really do call balls and strikes, I very much bleed the blue. Everyone kind of knows that. But at the same time, when I see a hitch in the get along, and that certainly was this, I call it out. And for all those leads, those cold cases have been around for years. The journals have been around for years. That evidence has existed. And it was just frustrating when I learned how long they had them. And so, you know, it just should be a wake-up call, this case, in so many ways, but certainly a wake-up call to law enforcement. You have to look at all the details, and just because you have somebody confess to 10 murders, that doesn't mean it was all of them. And I understand that many people thought that, but they should have been entered into a database. They should have been properly cataloged and looked at closely. And then the pantyhose situation, and I know Kerri has such a close relationship with the Osage Sheriff's Office and those folks that have done such a tremendous job, not trying to take away from that. What I am trying to say is, you do not play with pantyhose that likely strangled a woman to death on your desk. Have those been to the lab. There could be small particles of hair in there. Imagine these are women. You've got pantyhose around their neck. There could be evidence that could still be utilized. We know it was encapsulated and possibly protected pretty well from the elements. I was just disappointed with that, and I called it a strike, and it was a strike. 2 strikes.
And we're going to get right back to Kerri, I promise. But that is Mac's world right there, that pantyhose ligature. For those of you who haven't, been following this as closely as we have, the Osage County from Oklahoma Sheriff's Office went back to Kerri's childhood home and started to dig, and they found this pantyhose ligature, which could have been used to choke someone else. And there you're seeing the visual there, literally. Kerri, by the way, where is that exactly? What are we looking at there, Kerri?
That is my backyard, and the man digging does not want to be identified right now. He's one of the investigators on this team. Someday I'll get him on your show, Joel, I promise. So
Okay.
he's literally my investigative brother. We're going to leave that. He's commissioned officer for Osage. He's a we're just going to leave it at that. Okay. So he's digging there, and Mac can tell us more about like ground penetrating radar and cadaver dogs. They ran cadaver dogs through the yard. 2 points of things. Koff tweeted out that those writings were from 1976 because that's what the press release did. I had to go. So what happened was when Koff said 76, I said, no, it's from writings from 2004, early 2005. They were typed on a computer. Okay. My dad was working on communications that he was going to release. They're called C9s, chapter 9. He was going to release a book. C9 means a hit. These were supposedly hits. So he wrote in 2004, 2005 about 1976. Now the press. So then I said, Koff, you have the wrong date, and I pushed back hard. And then she goes, no. She goes, that came from CNN. So then I go over to CNN, and I was like, okay, CNN, where did you get that? And CNN's like, we got it from the Osage press release. And I was like, oh, come on, guys. And so like yesterday, I had to contact Osage. First, I had to apologize to Koff. And then I had to go over to Osage and I said, guys, you got that wrong in 2 places. And I'm literally the last week fact checking New York Times, NBC. And then when I tried to fact check CNN, they fact checked me back and they're like, no, your team did that. So anyway, it was from 2004. And so that's my backyard. That's where I grew up. I only have one ever home. My dad and mom bought that lot and house. It was a 3-bedroom ranch, about 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms. Pretty small, 1 bathroom, very annoying, especially with my father. It's a big lot. It's got like 5 big trees, had a big garden, kitchen garden. So what they're digging up is the footprint under the shed, and we'll get to that, but that's what they're doing. And in regards to the ligature, it's too small to have been around a neck. It could have been around a wrist or an ankle. They found it underneath those stone blocks. Somebody had put a sidewalk in. This is Park City property. My house was demolished in 2007 after a lawsuit with families that didn't go through. Somebody stepped up in California in 2007. Dad was arrested in 2005. Mom paid that mortgage on that house for 2 years, but never slept in it again. And paid rent, by the way. Somebody donated money, like $45,000 to pay off that mortgage because my parents had remortgaged it basically to send me to college. They paid it off anonymously from California. We have no idea who. It's like a 50-year thing. We're not going to know. They donated it to Park City. Park City bulldozed it, including that shed and the treehouse and everything. Now, in 2020, they put a sidewalk in. There's a park. You go in that yard and you go back. There's a park that goes down to Mrs. Hedges' house where she was murdered. And a couple down houses is my mom's parents. So they put a park access here in that lot. Now, these guys from Osage, they were out there in April walking around, and they were walking around probably with KBI. KBI is involved in this. I'm not at liberty to discuss what KBI's involvement is. It will come out eventually, possibly. They're very quiet right now. They were out there walking around and they found this little ligature that was underneath one of those stones. What they think is that when they went in there to excavate that sidewalk, they had dug some stuff up and broke some glass that my dad had stored stuff in. Now, that ligature had been out in the elements. My working thought with my team is that they probably maybe touched it, didn't really keep it as evidence in April. It's maybe been around some, and I think they thought they weren't going to get anything off of it. I agree both with Koff and Mac. But anybody that knows me for 5 seconds knows how defensive I am of my family. And so I'm going to, Koff's going to call the balls and strikes, and I'm going to defend my family, but I would not have done what he did, and I don't think they need to do it with any other evidence. And I'm literally on the phone with these guys. I love them. I'm calling them. They're calling me. We're texting, managing an immense amount, and they were not expecting media. They're such goobers. Like, I love him. Like, he's a sheriff of like 50,000, in Oklahoma, but they're cowboys and they're not used to media. And I love these guys so much. Like, I ride around with them. I go eat with their families. Like, they take care of me like family. But I told them in June, I said, look, guys, I said, you can't go dig up a serial killer's yard and not hit media. And they just didn't listen to me. And they did it and didn't tell me on Tuesday. And they weren't even out of Wichita when national media and multiple outlets were pinging my phone. And it set off my PTSD. I'm literally in the hospital getting IV meds for COVID. And so I had to on record a little bit of it because my phone was going off the hook. And I was mad as Hop is at my team. They got some blistered ears that are still red, but we're recovering nicely now.
And we're gonna get back into those writings, but as Kerri just clarified, it's from 2004. That still predates his incarceration, or dad's incarceration, so it would have been before. But there's some interesting things in those writings that we will circle back to. And again, Kerri is also recovering from bronchitis. And for the people out there, and I know there's going to be people who are going to say, you're exploiting Kerri Rawson, she's on air, she shouldn't be on air, it's too stressful. Mac, Koff, Kerri, we talk very openly. She's a grown woman. I've asked her multiple times. In fact, she wanted to come on last week right when the news broke, and I told her I didn't think it was a good idea to take some time. I was getting my ass dragged to a wedding. So here we are this week, and there you go. By the way, Sun Valley, Idaho is beautiful. I got to plug those guys. But Mac, back to that ligature. Kerri's calling out the sheriff for just, he was doing kind of a show and tell on his desk. Is that a mistake? Is that a mistake? Should that be in a lab sealed up and being, as Koff just alluded to, examined under a microscope, looking for fibers, hairs, anything that you can? Before you answer, great comment here. I love this from Elen Hallegrim. I absolutely love that Kerri is becoming more well-known than her father. That's rad, since she's really doing a lot of good in the world. Ooh, I just got goosebumps. Kerri, I don't know if your dad, it's funny. People don't realize prisoners now have tablets. Do you think your dad watches these shows to keep tabs on you?
That's where I was going. That's exactly where I was going.
No, he's not allowed internet, social media, or email, so he cannot see you, Jill. I'm so sorry. He cannot chat in with you. He can watch the news on his TV. He watched me on Dateline, and then he had spies trying to figure out where I live based on where I was on the bridge. So that was lovely, Dad. He has cable TV. He keeps up with everything. He's very impressed with me. Probably a little jealous. He's jealous of my buy me coffee money. His public defender told him how much I was making, and I'm literally like keeping a roof over my head because people are helping me right now. And he didn't like how much money I raised, but I don't think he understands reality of like 2023 rent. Like, he's over here in like 2005 land. So he has a chat tablet. It's very locked down. He's allowed to use an app. People really can text my father if they so want to. I recommend no, but that's how he's in touch with the media. Now, a lot of media will not talk to him. There's been a change in ethics. There are certain journalists that will not touch him, and I really appreciate that's a big change over the last 20 years. There are some that will, and so really it's my dad that's been getting all this information out. Interestingly enough, guys, he has not said one word since we dug up his precious yard. I think that's pretty telling. Like, I think he's shocked into muteness after 50 years.
And there you got some breaking news. Dennis Rader has not said a word since that yard has been dug up, and could be because there are some states involved that are death penalty states, which we talked about last time, which we'll get back into. Also, Kerri had a face-to-face, as I know it or understand it, for the first time since he's been incarcerated. I want to hear all about that. But first, Mac, back to that ligature on the desk of the Osage sheriff. Bad idea, good idea. What say you?
Listen, y'all kind of took my thunder. What I was going to say is I think it was on purpose. I think he did it absolutely directly to Dennis Rader. There's no way he hadn't seen it. There's no way he doesn't know it. And for somebody else to possibly be touching one of his trophies for one of his projects, for one of his C9s, would send him straight out. They are sending the message that you are no longer in control of anything. Not what happens to your burial sites, not what happens to your trophies, and not what happens to your daughter. She doesn't need a protective order. She's going to walk in here like a boss, and she's going to tell you, I'm helping them come at you. I'm part of this. You are no longer in power, in control, or manipulating me. Still love you. You're my dad. But I'm going to help them find these answers. And to me, when I saw that, I thought it was a power move from that chair.
We're going to get to your question. I am not T-Pain. I kept meaning to get to the two victims who are out in front right now, and there are potentially three others. One is Cynthia, who went by Cyndi Kinney. She was last seen in Oklahoma back in 1976. She was a 16-year-old cheerleader leaving a relative's laundromat. The exact date, June 23rd, 1976. And as you see there, the COE's got it all written down for you. And then there's Shauna Beth Garber. She was a 22-year-old woman in McDonald County, Missouri. She was raped and restrained with different types of bindings, a BTK signature before being strangled. That is a composite, like a rendering, before being strangled in 1990. Her body was severely decomposed when it was found near an abandoned house in Southwest Missouri. She was considered missing for decades before her remains were identified using genetic genealogy in 2021. Interestingly, at the time that she was murdered, Dennis Rader, Kerri's dad, was in Missouri working for the U.S. Census Bureau as a supervisor. There is a missing poster. I believe that is for Cynthia Kinney, the top one there. To you, Koff, I had a specific question that I just lost it was I am not T-Pain's. I'm going back to try to find it. But what about all this movement right now, Koff? It's almost tough to keep up with. It's going so quickly. But what are investigators, your people, the FBI, doing right now to try to piece these all together? Because these cases are obviously decades old, some of them.
These cases are so interesting to work because they're historical. So you're not chasing things that are getting ready to happen. You're chasing things that have happened, and there's going to be historical data that already exists. But they're very challenging because of witnesses being older, being deceased, not remembering. So it's also really the most difficult kind of case you can work. So right now, law enforcement will be interviewing. They will be looking at whatever records might have existed back then regarding travel actions, where Dennis went, where other people that were involved in the crimes in terms of the victims, in terms of other people and witnesses to corroborate what they said in the first place, because of course, you're going to have people that may think they remember something, and you're going to have to corroborate what they say. So it's a big web that has to be really sewn together. And one of the pieces that I think is so critical are those images, the photographs that I'm sure you're going to get to that were recently shown, because that shows how he committed a crime per project. In addition, I think what they retrieved from the dig is also important to be evaluated for possible DNA. And if not DNA, for a connection to those victims. Was that a piece of clothing? Was that a piece of jewelry? So I would love to be part of that investigative team. This is the kind of case you really live for because it's so interesting.
Kerri tweeted out in the last day or two, and I quote here, "I'm only at liberty to discuss what's been entered into the public record by my law enforcement team and comment what's on record. Brace. This is just the beginning. We will do this carefully, meticulously. This is a multi-agency endeavor. I'm just a tiny cog in all this. We will get answers for these families." As you can tell, Kerri is interested in justice for the families, which is very admirable. Kerri, can you just tell us, because everyone asks, hey Kerri, what can you talk about? What can't you talk about? This latest round of cold cases, these Shauna Garber, Cyndi Kinney. Can you tell us when you got back involved and how involved you were over the last bunch of months? What was a typical day like for you working on this?
Yeah. First, I want to say sometimes people will troll me. They're like, why is she over there like laughing? Like, it's so mind blowing. I think it's stress relief, right? Like, it's just so insane. I'm sorry that if like I'm being a little goofy on camera, like, I'm sure somebody in chat is saying something, and I get trolled on Twitter because like today I posted something about Folsom Blues, like the song by Johnny Cash, because it's just stress relief, guys. Like I am in it and under it in about 1,500 ways, and so like I'm just dealing, and I apologize if I like my face is smirky. I have no poker face. Secondly, Coffin Dapper, if you want to join us, you're more than welcome. I will get your deets over to my guys and back and forth. I'm connecting Mac over there. She wants to go play in some dirt. So I'm gonna have Mac's getting like Mac has a Cold Case Institute research, and I just messed the name of that up, but Mac has a cold case research institute, and Mac's offered help to my guys. Mac offered help a long time ago, so Koff, you can get in on this too. The fun. The question from T-Pain, let's take that first. Why do you think BTK used the term projects for his victims? That implies something more than just an object. Why the word means to him? He talks about it in Ramslin's book. If you guys really want to go dig this, go read Ramslin's book. Just take it with some salt. But in Ramslin's book from 16, my dad is in his own words. It's just a term he came up with. He calls them people. I really cannot even hardly use the word project. And honestly, when I'm with my law enforcement and we get slap happy, we start like giggling over the word project inappropriately. I think it's a way to just make him less human. But it doesn't always mean a murder. It could be a missing person. It can be a break-in and entering. He's got about 200 projects. Let's hope to God those are not all murders, or we're going to be doing this for the next 50 years. Either way, if my dad doesn't cooperate, this might be the next 50 years of my life. Like, I might end up building a nonprofit just to solve all these, because if they're not my dad's, they still need answers. So I might be spending the rest of my life in the Midwest doing this work. So a project can be anything. So let's just say the project terms after high school. He trolls for times and then he.
Well, Kerri, your audio's clicking a little bit. I don't know if that's your headphone. I'm gonna have you switch, and I'm gonna go to Max. It's clicking pretty bad. Hang on a sec. I have you muted, so just yeah, it's clicking really bad. Mac, to you, Kerri just said that you want to go play in the dirt.
100%.
At her old
100%.
house. If
Yep.
you went there, like my kid has a pail and a shovel, like drives me crazy because I don't like dirt. Rotten kid throws sand on me at the beach. But what if you're playing in the dirt at Kerri's old house? What are you doing?
Well, first of all, I mean, in reality, I'm going to be a bystander. I'm going to help if they need me to help, but they have got this thing under control. It sounds like to me they've done everything beautifully. They've done everything correctly. They're taking their time. They're not in there just, just manhandling the soil or anything. They're going, just a really thin layer of dirt at a time. They're almost excavating like you would see them do like with dinosaur bones, like an archaeologist. Like, they're not going to get in a hurry. They are not going to damage something that's underneath the dirt. They're not. And, I think Koff, again, I think she's absolutely right when she says this is the kind of case you want to be involved. You want to be able to help. So, for example, I can take DNA completely out of it. If you've got any kind of ligature, the first thing that I would do is start with the item. What is it? Is it pantyhose? Do we have pantyhose in any of the other cases that we're looking at, solved and unsolved? Then I'm going to the knot. How is that thing tied? Is it tied so specific that you can look to his Boy Scout background or some other background where he would have used that type of knot? Is it something that he writes about? Can we decode anything that he has said the way this thing was tied? And again, when I saw that sheriff, that was the first thing I wanted to zero in on, is that knot. And there are, people that do nothing but tell you about knot tying. We saw it in the Rebecca Zahau case, but, we've worked it multiple times. We had a case even from 1946 where we had to get an expert in knot tying. because the way the victim was tied up. So again, to me, that's the kind of thing that I would look for. And I would just remind everybody, he wrote about it. He wrote about it.
Yeah.
So again, this is a man that on his second murder came up with a moniker. And that wasn't overnight, y'all. And then he sends it to the Wichita Eagle because he wants the notoriety. So you have all this combined. You go at him correctly, and you go at him with this notoriety and how we're going to talk about your codes and your brilliance and the way you did all these things. You might get him talking more than you think.
And I still have to get back to Kerri about the prison visit. I'm personally curious about that. But first, Koff's got a few minutes left, then she's got to jump and she'll come back on. I have a feeling we're going to be going for a little while today. But in this August 24th press release, this is what we've been talking about with these entries. The Osage County Sheriff's Office shared an excerpt of what Koff and Kerri are now battling between what is either 1976 or 2004. But in the journal entry, according to the sheriff, there's a significant event. This is just background so you guys know what we're talking about, kind of trying to fill in the holes here a little bit. It was a significant event marked as PJ-Bad Wash Day. That's during a period in which Rader acknowledged being outside the Wichita area. The press release says, noting that PJ is Dennis Rader's abbreviation of project, a word he used for his potential victims. C9 makes reference to Chapter 9 in his unpublished book manuscript that intended to give details on all the murders he actually committed. Koff, what do you think, knowing that BTK actually planned to write an entire book about this? Kerri has more insight than any of us, but do you think somewhere there exists even more writings that we don't know about as he planned to, publish a book about it?
I think possible, and I'll tell you why. These writings weren't ever in just one spot. They were found at several different spots, at the church, at the office, at his home, different places. So it's clear to me that he didn't have one hidey hole. He had several hidey holes. Have they found all the hidey holes? We don't know that. So I think it's very possible, Joel.
Kerri, back to you. Let's just get this out of the way. So as part of this investigation, you're asked to go visit your father. He's in the El Dorado. I called it Dorado last time and was yelled at. So the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. Can you I'm so intrigued by this stuff. What's it like? What's it like when you pull up to that facility? I mean, how many security entrances do you have to go through? And then what's it like knowing you're about to see your dad? And how do you see him? Is it through glass, through a monitor? Just take us through that.
Koff, when you need to get going, just go.
Yeah.
And Joel, ask me back later about the 5 cases, because I totally missed that question. And also, it was me making noise. I'm fidget spinning, and I had it on with the mic. So it literally was not my headphones. I'm sorry. Mac actually called me out on her own Zone 7. I was doing this, and her audio guy is like, "What is that clicking noise?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's my bad. I'm a child over here with my fidget spinner." So,
I need to get you like a squeeze ball or something. That's
quiet. No squeeze balls. Dad used squeeze balls to strengthen his hands to strangle. No squeeze balls,
all right,
please.
bad idea.
Like, I usually wear anxiety fidget rings, so I forgot my rings. So I'm sorry, Joel. I'm a child over here. Now I've got Matt cracking up about squeeze balls.
We have to laugh at this, right? You can't tell a serial killer's daughter to use a squeeze ball.
I'm sorry,
guys. Y'all, I'm sorry. I just got to break it for a second. Here, Joel is trying to be so sweet, and he just has this answer for you. Hey, I'm going to get you a squeeze ball. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
That was classic.
Yeah, no, he kept it by his bed to strengthen his hands, because he literally said after the Otero murders, it was harder to strangle than he thought. And so he practiced strangling with a squeeze thing by his bed.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Joel, you were asking me.
No, I'm like, anytime there's a doc on prisons, anything prison related, I'm watching. I'm very intrigued by that. What was it like what was it like to see your dad for the first time since he was convicted? Just walk us through it.
Yeah, just quick background. So in January, my dad released to Fox News Digital. He was chatting with them, and he told them that Osage had come to talk to him about Kinney. So I'm on record from January until May saying, no, it was just the 10. And now I got trolls telling me at Twitter, well, you said this in January. And I said, it's not January now, guys. It's August. Like, stop quoting me in January. Literally, if my dad has killed one more person or kidnapped one more person, my whole book's going to have to be rewrote. But everybody's gosh darn like encyclopedia on my father, every textbook is going to have to be rewrote. So I'm not alone in that. Everybody from Adam to Z has said it was just 10. So I find out in January about Kinney only because of dad. And then we find out about Garber in June. And I think one thing is really important to clarify just up front. And guys, this is really, really important. It is not my father claiming that he kidnapped Kinney or that he killed Garber or these other ones that we're going to talk about. It is not him. He does not like this. This was Osage opened up an investigation. They got into all those records. What you guys were showed was one paragraph. I'm in 99%. Like, you guys have about 0.5%. You have a tip of an iceberg. We're talking about maybe 50 years of work here, guys. So it's not dad claiming these. He is telling me directly that he didn't do these, and he's dodging. He's making up alibis. He's lying to my face. I tweeted out tonight or today that my dad is a pathological liar. He's a malignant narcissist. He's a sexual sadistic psychopath. You have to start there. If you do not start there, he's going to run you 5 million places. Detective Lori Howard from McDonald County said he was very cooperative and answered her questions. That is not true. He's running everybody that goes in there completely ragged, including me. So I'm over here for months defending the man because if he's innocent, I still will defend him, okay? Even if say he's innocent on A and not B, I'm still going to defend him on A, and he's got public defense lawyers and he has the right to defense. He also has the right to go try on the death penalty if he's touched somebody, you know what I mean? So I'm out in California for work, and I get a hold of McDonald County, and they call me, and then they get a hold of Osage. And the next thing I know, I'm rerouted from coming home to Florida, and I'm rerouted to Tulsa. I don't know, like, can you guys see? It says I love Tulsa back here. This has been sitting here for like months, and I've been punking all the media as they're calling me on like Rex and I'm like literally like right here. I left Tulsa and nobody's paying attention. Like only Fox was on it. So I'm in Tulsa. I go meet with my team. When I say my team, I mean Osage, the guys on it. And they let me into every freaking document of my father's that night. They just start showing me bondage photos. There's like 200 Polaroids my dad took. And yes, I know people are saying, who took those? It's my father. Go look at the one where he's in the sand, half buried. There's a cord, guys. Go look at that and blow it up where he's naked in the sand. There is a cord. They're so good. Like the investigators were worried they were other bodies. Those few photos that were like, that are out there publicly that News Nation covered last night, they have been out since 2005. They're public record. They were put into the public record by law enforcement in 2005. So dad pled guilty in June of 2005 to his 10. He didn't give him much details. Police were very irritated with him after 31 years. In August, they did 3-day victim impact statements, and they put everything they could of those 10 in the records. And they released like a handful of photos basically to humiliate my dad. And he's almost absolutely livid. If you go watch the video, he's about to like tear down that whole courthouse. He took those. He had a whole system with a Polaroid and a cord. Okay. So do not come at me and tell me somebody else took those. My dad took every last one of those, and they were in his evidence. You guys are seeing about 5. I unfortunately have seen about 200, I can talk about this because Eddie Verdon on record it last night. There's a series of them, and Matt can talk about this too.
He's the sheriff, by the way. He's the sheriff.
Yeah, he's reenacting crimes with these photos. So there's series of 9. Okay. There's one that's in my grandparents' basement where I used to play. Several. Here, I think I'm going to say this is on record, and if not, somebody can yell at me later. Right after Garber was murdered, before her body was found, but right after she was murdered, he goes and he does what we call big bondage. Big bondage, or when he's taking Polaroids, he goes to motel parties. He talks about this in Ramsland's book. He has suitcases full of materials. He has bondage racks that fold up. This man, as Mac will say, was a full-time serial killer. Okay. He goes and he does big bondage, and we speculate that he was reenacting what he did to Garber based on her crime scene right after. And there's a blanket that's been unrecorded that was missing. Garber is missing a blanket. In the bondage photo, there is a blanket that could match. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Dad reincorporated crime scene victims' blankets and materials back into my family, and we used that blanket to camp out. I slept on a blanket that my dad possibly murdered a woman on and jacked off on.
Wow.
I'm going to let Mac talk, and then I'll go back for the prison thing.
Guys, just think about that for 1 second, what Kerri just said. I won't say it the same way she did, but her family used a blanket that her dad used to kill people with, and here she is talking about it. 99.9999% of people would never do that. So trolls, think twice before you troll Kerri Rawson. You can troll Mac and I all day long, but you better think twice. It's not a threat. It's just you better have some common sense. Sarah Adams, of course, asking why would he keep these killings quiet? And I do want to get back to the prison visit, but Mac, the obvious question, and Kerri and I were talking, and she said to me, which I was thinking the same thing, why does everyone all these years think it's just the 10 people that we know about, the 10 victims that he confessed to? Were obvious things missed? If so, can you blame anyone? Did someone screw up? But and there it is. These are half of the victims of Dennis Rader's, the known victims that he confessed to. But have we all collectively just assumed, yeah, he's a serial killer and he's telling us the truth, and it was just these 10 all along? Or has it taken this evidence to sort of spill out for us to realize there could be a lot more? As you heard Kerri say, this might have to become her life's work, just helping solve the cases that her dad committed. It could be, who knows, 10s, 20, 30, we don't know.
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of us, myself included, that always thinks there's more. I think Rex Huberman, there's more. I think Wayne Williams, there's more. I think Ted Bundy, Israel Keys. I always think there's possibly more, because I think sometimes we only know the first time we're introduced to this person. We only know about that first murder. It's the first murder to us. It doesn't mean it was the first murder. There are people that, and he is, again, somebody that seeks out attention. When he was caught, that's why he, quote, confessed. He confessed because he wanted us to know. So what did he give us? He gave us his top 10. So maybe there's a few that he felt like, yeah, I didn't do really well on that one. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I made some mistakes. I don't want them to know about those because I made some mistakes. They weren't done at the same level. I didn't do my own reenactments. I didn't dress in their clothes. I didn't have a hotel party. Again, this is his way of thinking. Doesn't have to be ours, but if you think of, he confessed to 10 murders in 17 years, but he went on for 14 more years. Do you really think for 14 years he didn't do anything? He didn't have any other victims of any kind? I find that extraordinarily difficult to believe. And the other thing that I want to point out that Kerri said, law enforcement released those photographs for what purpose? To get under his skin, to show the world, this is what this man is about. This is what he did. We're taking control. And I'm going to tell you again, when I watched that sheriff, that's what I saw. I saw a power move by a sheriff to not only let Dennis Rader know point blank, I ain't got to walk in that prison and tell you anything, son. I'm going to do it right here through this TV. And the other thing he did, if there's anybody in Arkansas, for example, that has a similar ligature, well, now they've seen it. Now they know to make the call. If there's another state that has a similar ligature, I think what he did was brilliant, completely brilliant. And if that CSI had that ligature, put it in a bag, took it straight to him. The sheriff's got on gloves. He takes it out. He's showing it again. Power play, baby. It was genius.
MK, does Kerri have a Cash App? Followed by Elen Holgram. Just bought Kerri some coffee, more coffee. Happy I can support in any way. Thank you for staying strong. You know, trolls come at Kerri and say, "Oh, you're just trying to profit off of this." And she did have a best-selling book, but trust me, she works on this day and night, and I know because I get texts and tweets in the middle of the morning a lot of times, and when
So
I'm
does Mac.
in different time zones. So she could certainly use some support. Kerri, is there a good place to support you?
So I do the buy me coffee. You guys aren't, I'm literally just not drowning in coffee. I turn that over and like pay my rent with it. I'm like a single mom. My ex-husband's very supportive. Anybody that read my first book, I know it's shocking that we're divorced, but yes, we are divorced. Please don't come over and tell me like, oh my God, you guys are divorced. It's just a reality of like, you'll get that story someday. I'm working on it right now, guys. Okay. I promise. Like, it's okay that we're divorced. He's a good guy. The kids are close. But the buy me coffee is literally just a way to funnel money into my checking account to pay for things like groceries. So if you go to Twitter, there's like a Cash App, Venmo. Right now I am doing all right. And then I will be paying it forward like this fall as like a contract comes in. And so like, I was like I'm doing okay, but I really do appreciate it because it is helping me. So, and like, you guys should know, like, Joel is amazing. I guess I'll call him my big brother.
Please
like
do.
he's totally had my back for months, like in like multiple fronts. And so has Mac. Mac, I really appreciate what you said about the ligature, because I wasn't thinking about that being a power move. Honey, they don't have CSI. Like, the guys on this, like, they don't even know what CODIS is, hon. Like, they're old school cowboys and they solve most crimes as they're driving between cases. Like, they have this massive country county up in north central Oklahoma. They cover a massive square footage of land. They work with the Indian Bureau very closely. They're dealing with insane amount of drug issues like meth and marijuana. Very rural area, and they're literally solving one crime as they're driving to another one to go put something out, what we call fires. It really, the investigators on it are Eddie, the sheriff for Dan. He's like a dad to me. He's still probably not old enough to be my dad. Like, I just don't do the math, guys. And then there's the undersheriff, Gary Umpton. And then he kind of like helps step in when Eddie's on things. And then there's my investigator, the guy that was digging up the yard. And that's really it, other than the support staff underneath them. And they literally, where I work with these guys, Joel was asking, I go work in Eddie's office with my team of these other guys. And they're literally on 5,000 active things while I'm there, and I'm in the files, because I'm not allowed to be in the digital files when I'm home, because it's all evidence and it needs to be behind a firewall. It needs to be behind a law enforcement firewall. And it's all digitalized in 05 by like the FBI in Wichita. And it's a law enforcement file that is shared between agencies, but it's kept very protected because it has crime scene photos, autopsy photos, that kind of stuff. And literally I'm in the office working, and then right next door is their jail. So if they decide someday that they're done with my dad, they literally could just drive him and put him in that jail right there where I work. So they're very rural. I mean, Matt can maybe talk about like what rural police force is, but like now, because everything blew up, they went and dug up my yard, and then they had a tsunami of media. We're getting so much help now, like phone calls are being returned. Other agencies are stepping up. KBI is involved. I don't know about FBI yet. I don't even know if I would know. There's stuff they have to keep walled off from me, obviously, for good reason, because, guys, I'm a trauma victim. I'm a severe abuse victim. I'm also a witness, so we don't want to take testimony. I've been warned by my dad's public defender that I'm an active agent of law enforcement. I have to be careful. Any conversations I have with my dad gets entered into the evidence-able record. It's going to get very complicated if this goes to court for me, because I'm also an investigator. I'm just not commissioned. They don't want to commission me, because if they commission me, then my dad could take Miranda, and we don't want to do that.
By the way, shout out to Shaming a Jay. And I got to be honest, I don't really know much about it. I just know that it looks like a lot of fun. And he says Kerri is a badass warrior. It's kind of shameless on my part, but I might have to get on the Shaming a Jay because it sounds fun. I am not T-Pain. You're not just a cog in the machine, Kerri. You are the machine. This has come up a bunch of times, Kerri, and this is the first I'm hearing of it. Do you know why your dad used Rex to communicate in the paper? I didn't know that. That's weird in light of the Rex Heuermann stuff. A lot of people have brought that up. Is there an answer that you have to that?
It could just be a coincidence. It did bother me. I knew it right away. Rex isn't a real familiar name, and Lincoln 04. I mean, I'm sure some really great true crime person's going to call me out on this that I don't even know exactly when, but my dad was using classifieds to talk to law enforcement and the Wichita Eagle. And he was doing this back and forth between the 70s from 74 to 79. And he goes quiet on my first birthday. Okay. He goes and mails a letter. He says, I'm done. Okay. And then there was no communication until around 90 with the Fagers. He was messing with a widow that lost her husband and her 2 kids. Now that one is sort of on a speculative list right now because that one was never actually solved. Somebody got off on a technicality. So guys, I was going to say earlier, if you want to get involved in this, maybe just grab some paper and you can write like over speculative, just put Fagers for now. So like with dad, like with Rex, at some point he used a,
there you go.
ad.
Here's one idea. Wendy Welch. This is interesting. The name Rex in Latin means king. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, he just used a classified ad and he said contact Rex. I don't think it means he had any contact with Rex Heuermann. If he did, then we're in a whole other ball of wax that I'm not really wanting to get into, guys.
I think that's total coincidence. Hang on one sec, Kerri. I want to come back to Mac, and then I got to get your prison story. And I know there's literally, this could be a 7-hour, it might be a 7-hour podcast, so buckle your seats. But Mac, to you, there was just a comment that I lost in the shuffle, basically saying, this is a different time. He was incarcerated in 2005, started, I believe, in the early 70s. And there's not the digital forensic evidence we have now. How complicated does it make it going back in time now without cell phones, without computers? You heard Kerri say he was writing on a typewriter. How much more complicated is that to this current investigation?
Well, we have an eyewitness. Kerri saw things. She saw items. She saw data. She saw spreadsheets and maps and codes. She knows. And if people listen to her and on top of that, read his writings, he wrote it down. I mean, I can't even fathom the treasure trove those journals would end up being if somebody just went line by line, word for word. He's telling you when he confessed, how did he talk? How did he say it? Did he go in chronological order? Did he go in my favorite to worst? Did he save the best for last? He will tell on himself. This is a man that gave himself a moniker. And when he referred to himself as BTK, that was a code. And then what did he do in that first letter? He broke the code for you. He told you what it stood for. Bind, torture, kill. What he did just then, he not only told you his MO, he told you a signature, which again is the reason I'm convinced that sheriff knew what he was doing, baby. In your moniker, you talk about how you bound those victims, and that sheriff put it right out there for God and country, baby.
Now, keep in mind, there's a lot Kerri can't talk about, and for full disclosure, I don't know a lot of what she can't talk about.
Let me address both of those, Joel. First off, guys, I am an active investigator. I am in 99% of this. There's some stuff that's walled off from me for trauma reasons. Let's just talk about my reality. Now, Mac was talking about how I've been in this for months. I've actively been in this since June, like literally down to crime scene photos. They're trying to be careful with me. I accidentally saw one I should not have seen. It's still stuck in my head. I'm in trauma therapy. I'm processing. I was notified that I'm a more severe victim in June. I'm not ready to talk about it. Maybe I'll come on with Joel or something, but we're not going to go there tonight. Okay. I was notified the night before I saw my dad. Osage has done it right. They've notified me of things that I should have been told in 2005 that were in my dad's writings. FBI effed up, literally. And I'm not putting it on Wichita. God bless those men. They're the ones that really solved this and saved my family and protected us and kept us alive. So did KBI. My beef is with the FBI because they only talked to me for about 2 hours one weekend. They still have not had one conversation with me in 18 years. And I can tell you the color of knife handles. I can tell you the color of toolboxes. And I can tell you right now that a knife that needs to be tested is sitting in the freaking KBI glass case in Topeka that's been on display for 18 freaking years. And that thing needs to go tested for DNA based on what I was told this weekend. And I literally was texting all my guys today. And I said, you know, that knife you're looking for, it's up in Topeka in that freaking glass case. And I said, hey, it's been preserved. And I said, look, there's a big rope over there that's on display. Where's that rope from? I have no idea. And underneath that knife that was used, I believe on Bright, Dad carried that knife to go fishing. He taught me how to fillet fish with a knife that he killed Bright with, as best as I know. Now we're looking at that knife in another case, okay? It's literally in the KBI glass case. At least it's been preserved. Right underneath that is my DNA that they took without my permission. They warranted it and subpoenaed it, okay? I had justified cause back in 2005 to be very upset with these people. Yes, I did display some of my anger. I also kept my mouth shut for 10 years. I love law enforcement. I have said on record, as I dropped a press release on their head last week from my hospital bed hooked up to an IV, I said I will work with anybody, okay? The only FBI agents that will talk to me are the retired ones. It's very, very frustrating. The reality is that you can show me something, I will get you 5 new pieces of information, and they will reopen a case in about 5 minutes after they talk to me. It is ridiculous that these men and women that I am not at Quantico right now. It's BS that I am not at Quantico working on these right now. It's frustrating as heck.
Kerri, this is interesting. I mean, this show can take on so many different tentacles, but Kit Kat is wanting to know if you know anything about your dad's childhood that may have triggered this. Do you know what his childhood was like? I assume you do.
Yeah, just real briefly. He was born in 1945. Grandpa William was over at Midway serving in World War II. Grandpa didn't come back to 1946. There would have had to have been a shore leave in there to conceive my father, like don't ask, don't tell. Grandma was very young. She literally went on a train to marry Grandpa in like 1943 before he went to Midway. So like both grandfathers are war veterans. Grandpa didn't get back till like late 1946. So Grandma was raising my dad the first year and a half alone. She was like 18, 19 with her family in Columbus and Pittsburgh, Kansas. The working theory is that my father was probably like raped or sodomized, abused sexually pretty heavily somewhere in there before the ages of 3 or 5. My grandparents were amazing people. My dad's 3 other younger brothers are great guys. It wouldn't be my grandparents. I think it could have been a distant relative. My dad's reported some things about a pastor. My dad was left for a while with some family. My dad's hinted at some things with poetry. There's a nurture-nature debate. Like we wouldn't need forensic psych to like talk about that, but we don't really know what went wrong with my dad. But I think in my opinion, I don't think it's DNA, guys, because I've never even got a parking ticket. I think something happens to these people and they break and they're not resilient enough. People have said the reason that I'm still alive is because I'm so resilient. Okay. And so for me, I think with these guys, maybe like Rex or Dad, we don't know with Rex, I think they break when they're little and they internalize that. And then they pass on the pain. Okay. My dad was passing on the pain in my family. Now my family has stopped it. We're a generational stop, right? I've stopped it. I'm not passing it on to my kids. Okay. So I'm a generational stop. I mean, not a lot of kids are like serial killer kids, but how many of us have been in abuse situations, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, trauma, verbal abuse, mental abuse. Okay. It's so common, like in America, if like alcoholic abuse and stuff. Okay. Drug abuse. You have to go get help, and you have to stop that. Okay. So for me, what dad is doing is he's just passing on pain. And the old school people will come on these shows and they'll argue with me and they'll say, your dad had no feelings. He's a psychopath. Okay. Yes, he's a psychopath. He's all feeling constantly. He's dysregulation of emotion. He doesn't have control over it. Okay. This is why one of the reasons I'm speaking up. So I think something happened to my dad. We know based on my dad's own reportings in Ramsland's book, specifically, my dad will tell you by the time he was 8, he was peeping Tom. He was stealing underwear. Okay. By high school, he was breaking and entering. Okay. This is what nowadays we call a conduct disorder. He didn't get any help. He was allowed to free rein run in the 50s. Nowadays, we can catch these kids and we can reroute them if we catch them early enough, and we can try to get them help. Some are too severe, but if we catch them early enough, we can reroute them and keep them out of conduct disorder land. Once they get to conduct disorder land, if we do not literally rehabilitate and rejuvenate, we're in a heap of trouble.
Kerri, back to you here, and then we'll get back to Mac. Do you worry for your adoptive daughter, Kerri? I mean, when you think of her, you know, when you're concerned for her, what are you most worried about?
My kids aren't adopted. I gave birth to those two. There's no adoption. I assure you, if anybody would go read my book, there is graphic description of those children coming out of me. I assure you, there's no adoptions here, guys.
I was saying in jest, but because Mac's like you're kind of your adopted mom. But I mean, Mac, when you're thinking of Kerri, and sometimes you can hear, you know, the stress coming through, and it's, you know, and it's so understandable. But when you're concerned for her, what are your concerns for her, Mac?
You know, the first thing I always think about is just she's a badass to me. She has dealt with more and been through more and accepted more and pushed through more. And like she said, with everything that she dealt with, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, whatever, she stopped it. She is not that person for her children. She's not that person with her ex-husband. You know, they are still close. They are still raising 2 beautiful children. That's a remarkable thing for anybody, much less what she's been through. And if you listen to her, when she says, I'm in therapy, she says, I'm in trauma therapy. So it's just not, you know, I'm not really happy with my job, or I didn't really, you know, feel fulfilled in college or whatever. She has got things to deal with that are so beyond what the rest of us understand. And she does it beautifully. And again, she's able to laugh. She is able to have friends and, you know, relationships and build a career. She's able to do things that to me set her apart in a positive way. And please don't misunderstand. I ain't Pollyanna. I know this is a horrible thing, but what I see in her is a remarkable thing. And again, your mama said it. How many miracles had to happen for Kerri Rawson to be here today to help these other families? And that is what I see. A confident, badass, fearless woman that, even though, yes, she's going to have some night terrors, and yes, she don't want to walk in that prison, but she freaking does it anyway. That's boss.
I got to have iced tea with Mac on a rocking chair on a porch in Georgia. That's what I got to do before I die.
Come on, sugar.
Ashley Lauren says, Kerri, I'm the journalist. I got to keep asking the questions. So
I know. I keep dodging you, Joel. I'm ready for it now. I got it. I'm good.
Did your
I've
dad?
been dodging.
Yeah, unless it makes you uncomfortable, then we skip over.
No. I just, you know me. I got to tell from here to here before I get here. That's all.
But Ashley's asking, did your dad speak about anything random or completely off topic? Was he trying to gaslight or blame you and your family for not visiting him? Just take us to the point right before you see him. How does he come out? Is it behind glass, or is sometimes it's through monitors? But what was it like to see him for the first time?
So I was in my dad's records the night before, and then the next morning my team picked me up. We actually went and had a nice breakfast. No, that was the day I had McDonald's in the car. Never mind. Later they took me for breakfast, and we drove up through southeast Kansas. We're looking for Cyndi Kinney's body. We're literally out driving around marking spots on maps, paper and like technology maps of where we need to go dig and look around. So when I'm there, you were asking what I'm doing. I'm in my dad's records, which is like really like just desk work. And then we go drive around all over Kansas. We've been in Missouri and in parts of Oklahoma. We do need to check Arkansas. We're going to places that I have memories, because there's places I'm not going to have a memory till I see it. And then I'll go, hey guys, right here. And they'll mark it on a map, and then they're going to go back later and figure out what they need to do in that spot. Okay. And so we drove around to like just kind of chill me out, because obviously like I need some chilling out. And I was literally in law enforcement vehicle with my team and some extra people. So we get to El Dorado Correction Facility, and I'm like almost wigged out at this point. I have to go, here's a trick, girl, like women. If you're with a bunch of men and you need a chill for a minute, just go into the restroom, because they will not follow you and they will leave you alone for like 5 minutes. So like I do this on media too, but then the women follow me. But with men, you just say, I got to go to the restroom, and they'll leave you alone. And then you can go in there and like chill. So that's what I did. So all of my stuff has to go into a storage locker, my phone, my purse, everything. I'm only allowed to go in with a tablet, and it's a tablet of paper that they give me and a pen that they give me. And then I go through metal detectors. And then I had gone to the prison with a large team, Osage and some McDonald County, but the warden only wanted me to go in. And yes, it did have to go up to the governor's office, like to lift that. So the do not contact order. So I go in with 2 investigators. These are like prison detectives, and they carry a gun, and they do investigations internally. And we go through the whole like locked doors and everything. Now my dad's in solitary, so they have to go out to his cell. He's in a special cell. Like they've always built him a shower. They don't want to mess with him. They don't want him out in Gen Pop. He would have been dead a long time ago. So they built him a special cell with a shower and everything, so they don't have to deal with him. And they take him his food. They take him the library card, whatever he needs. So he's not out much. They have to go get him. I go through several doors and systems, and then I'm in a big room by myself with these investigators, and then he comes in. So dad's in a wheelchair. He used to be 5'11". Now he's 5'2". He's lost 9 inches. He has scoliosis. His legs are wrapped, like he's got some health issues. That's one of the reasons we're really pressing this, because we don't know, I would think he maybe doesn't have too much time, but all of this has invigorated him. So who knows? So he comes in a wheelchair, and I had been warned, like he doesn't have any teeth left. So it's almost like his jaw's gone, and then he's got big, thick glasses, and they're wrapped around his head. So when I literally told an outlet that my dad was rotting, he literally looks like he's rotting. The reality is I hadn't seen him in 18 years. And so you go from your father that's healthy at 60 to 78, and you've not seen him. Luckily, the investigators warned me what dad was going to look like, because it was shocking. He didn't recognize me at first. Like he got really upset then when he realized who I was. He was crying. So guys, when you're telling me you're coming over here with your degree and you're telling me these guys don't have any feelings, my father was sobbing to see me. Okay. Mac will tell you he's a full-time serial killer. He's also a full-time every other thing he does. He's also a full-time dad. Okay. He was literally sobbing. He reached out for me. He hugged me. He kissed me. It was fine. It didn't really do anything. It didn't bother me. And then I sat down with him. We had a reunion for about, I knew I only had about an hour and a half, and I was watching that clock because I knew I didn't have much time. So I had to keep dad on the clock, because he's going to run you 500 places, and you got to like this to get him to focus. So we sat down. We're about 6 feet from each other. My investigators are very discreet. They're right there with their weapons if I need them. I would not be anywhere near my father if I didn't have muscle. I literally have like this huge muscly guy, because they knew like she's not going to go in there without that muscle, right? So he's right there if I need him. Like he's there for me. Like he's not there for my dad. He's there for me. And we just talk. So we had a reunion. I have to be really careful. Like, there's a lot of privacy issues. There's a lot of people that have stalked me, used my dad. There's people that want to murder me. There's probably people watching this show that want to murder me. They'll contact my dad. It's just this whole ridiculous thing. That's why I had a do not contact order. So dad goes, why did you have the do not contact order? What happened? So I'm trying to explain to him the realities of social media, the realities of living in this life. Like, you know, I'm trying to explain to him because what life is like now for us, because he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that there's bad people that are trying to get a hold of him to impress him, like with my death. I have investigators actively, like, constantly working cases to keep my butt safe. So the reality that, like, I'm on Twitter dealing with nonsense, like, that's the nonsense on Twitter is like the most minimal thing that I have to deal with, guys. Seriously. So I'm having to explain all this to dad. And I'm watching the clock. And I'm like, well, we got to get some answers for Kinney's family, and we need some answers for Garber's family and all this other stuff, right? And my dad had never once been BTK in front of me. He'd always been my dad. He had always dodged it in letters. We'd only been in letters for 18 years, and those had been minimal. And I don't even know who brought it up. I think I did. And I said, hey, Speculative, what do you think happened to Garber? And it was like that dad mask came off, and it was like BTK. And like we've talked before on here about Dr. Ramsland with the cube. And she talks, you know, her and dad came up with cubing, where he's flipping the cube to show you dad, law enforcement, compliance officer, father, you know, brother, whatever. I thought it was a very slow process. I'm sitting in front of this 78-year-old man that literally has all these health problems. He is sharp as a tack, guys. He's like, and he's flipping that cube like this. Like, it's the most insane thing. Like, no, they did not record it on video. Like, they gave us privacy, but they did enter in all of our conversation into the official evidence record. Okay. So we have all that because we have transcripts and we can go use them, because he's so fast. You have to have that transcript. I had notes. I'm able to keep my notes, but we have to have that transcript because we need to catch him in those lies. Like, he's flipping that cube constantly. Okay. And when I'm doing my hand like this, okay, here's an exclusive new for you, Joel. I go, is there more than 10, Dad? And he goes, it's 10. And he holds up a finger. He's right-handed. And he goes, he's in cuffs, guys. Okay. So he's in cuffs. He's like this little old man. He's in cuffs. He goes, it's 10. Now, show me how would you guys do 10? How would you guys do 10? Like this, right? Yeah. And you would hold this, right? Or you maybe would do that. Are you going to be moving that 0? No, because it's a solid 10. I go, is it 10, Dad? And he goes, 10. And he rolls that 0. And I don't think because there's no cameras, right? And he says it silently, and he goes, and now I'm thinking, good God, man, how many times are you rolling that 0? Because I think you're trying to tell me it's more than 10 and you don't want it on audio. And I cannot get that out of my head of him doing that. Who has ever done 10 like this? No one. I'll let Mac fill in for a second.
Wow. All I can say, listen, as I got the chills multiple times, still do, and all I can say is wow. Mac, that last revelation that Kerri just broke right here on STS. She asked him for the number, holds up a 1, but the 0 keeps moving,
rolling. Yep.
Yeah, and Koff's coming back here, and I want to bring her. Hey, Koff, I want to bring you in on this. Good to have you back. Just don't worry, there's only 9 hours and 13 seconds left. But Koff, Kerri was just telling us that about meeting her dad, and she ended just now saying she asked her dad, "Is there more than 10?" And he put up this, like the 1 and the 0, whatever we do, like that 1 and the 0. But when Kerri said 1, when he put up the 1 and 0, he kept rolling the 0. So it gave us all kind of the chills here, and that's where you're coming back here. Mac, to you, what do you make of that?
Again, I would defer to Kerri. She knows this man better than anybody else. She knows the way he operates. She knows the way he thinks. So if she is telling you that a normal person would go, hey, okay, 10, but he doesn't do that. He says 1. That to me, even not knowing the man like her, this to me signifies keep going. It's rolling. It's more than you think. That's what it means to me.
By the way, Kerri, when she was recapping some of this on Twitter, obviously she said he was 5'10" or 5'11", now like 5'2" or 5'3" from scoliosis. He's a shriveled, shell of himself. But she did say, Kerri said that he is sharp as a tack, and a foe mentally. So he's still all there. Is that right, Kerri? He's super sharp.
It's it's the most insane thing. Okay. Official stats, guys, if you want to write this down, because we can rule him out quickly. I ruled him out on a case in Oklahoma. I was being asked about the Girl Scouts. There's 3 Girl Scouts that were murdered in Oklahoma, and I was just asked about that. Okay. The footprint is 9.5. Okay. He's an 11. So we got a 9.5 bloody footprint right now. I'm saying let's just eliminate that. I went and pulled that one up on Wikipedia. In 5 seconds, I eliminated it because the DNA goes back to some guy that's dead. Okay. Like, we have so many to go through. I'm not that one. Let's just rule it out. It's the wrong shoe and it's not his DNA. Okay. He has size 11 feet. He was 5'11". At peak, he was probably close to like 180, 190. He was very strong. Okay. He's very wiry. He's very fast on his feet. Nowadays, his body is absolutely rotting. Okay. I'm spiritual. It's like the darkness is in his core, eating him from the inside out. And well-deserved. Oh my God, I was getting trolled for what I was saying. People were not getting my tone. Anyway, he is sharp as a tack, guys. Okay. When I went in there the second time, I went back, like I drove, it was this whole thing. And I went back and he goes, I didn't know you were going to come back. And I said, Dad, I told you I was going to come back. I said, I just can't come all the time. I said, I told you I was going to come back. I spent 2 hours with him the second time I was in there. He had me down every rabbit hole from 1963 till 2023. Here's why I'm telling you he's sharp as a tack. I asked him about the murder of Dolores Davis. It was 91. We know that's his. Okay. I was asking him about her location because there's another case, Denise Rathburn. This is speculative. Okay. This is coming from me. We have a very long speculative list. Okay, Denise Rathburn is not solved. It's from 77. Her body was found the day Fox was murdered. We're trying to figure out, could Dad have done Rathburn? So I asking him about Rathburn. Her body was dumped under a bridge. And get this, guys, she was on her way to a laundromat in Wichita and went missing. Okay, she was pushing a baby carriage of clothes. She goes missing. Here's a laundromat again, like Kinney. Then her body is dumped up by a bridge not far from Davis. So I'm having this conversation with him because right now we're just speculative in a lot of areas. And I go, tell me about these bridges. And he literally can tell you the name of some creek that's like this wide. And he has the name. That's how sharp he is. I don't have that. And so I'm allowed to hand him paper and pen and he will draw me maps. So he draws me maps of barns and creeks. And he goes, like he'll talk to me. He goes, remember when you were 4 and you went fishing at this place and you caught this fish and you wore like this shirt and it's that photo. Like that's how sharp this man is. He knows every creek in Kansas still. And so like God bless Lori Howard, the detective on Garber. She's saying that he told her the truth and he was very cooperative. And like, I thought he was telling me the truth on something with Garber. And well, he goes, I'm trying to make an alibi. And I'm like, Dad, why do you need an alibi if you didn't murder anybody else? Why do we need alibis here, Dad? And then he comes up with some like BS answer. But I wrote it down and I thought, okay, he's being honest with me. I'm his daughter. He hasn't seen me in 18 years. And I go out to my investigators and they proved to me right there that he was lying to me. He literally pathologically was lying to me and I had no idea.
Looks like Kerri take a little breather right there. Cough, you're back in. Great to have you here. So, we heard Kerri just literally recreate with hand signs how her dad basically did the 1 and the rolling 0. You're the investigator here. Do you take that if you're investigating and he did that to you, you take that as more than 10. Someone said, was it infinity sign? It's a Black Widow or a friend of the show, or 0000. How would you take it?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly take it that way. I agree that Kerri knows the best because she knows him. But I do want to say this. At the end of the day, this is about him being in control. So just doing something like that, I'm not surprised because, again, now he's back in control. Now everybody's wondering. Kerri wondered, investigators are wondering because he was so nebulous with that sign he gave. So I see it as a control maneuver.
And then Ashley Lauren, right back to you, Cop. Thank you for answering my question, Kerri. She's talking about what Kerri just described, seeing her dad for the first time here. It's amazing that he cried like that because Kerri was saying he sobbed when he saw her and acted that way. So crazy how he can compartmentalize it. Does it surprise you, Koff, to hear that this notorious serial killer sees his daughter and breaks down, sobbing in tears?
Not at all. Not at all, because there is a part of him that loves Kerri deeply and that will never disassociate from her. He can put that in that drawer, and then when he sees her, it's true and it's real. So no, I'm not surprised.
Kerri, a couple people have asked in the chat if you have a photographic memory because you keep dropping dates. And
I do.
I have a photo. Do you? Does your dad?
Yeah,
have
I
one
do.
also?
I have a pretty visual memory. I'm very visual. It helps me with memoir. So I literally know colors of like my dad's hit kit from the bowling bag from '85. And really, Mac and I were talking about I maybe need to be hypnotized. I can't even say the word correctly because there's things we think. I know he took me to crime scenes later. That's why they're driving me around because I'm so visual. I won't remember something by name. I don't learn auditory. I don't process through auditory learning. I'm visual kinesthetic. I can still remember what a college textbook page looks like, honestly, to God. So I'm very visual. And so that's why they know to drive me around. And I will tell them down to like literally grass. I will say, boom, right here, guys, mark this. We got to come back. I can't on record anymore about that, but literally it's helping with the Garber investigation. We're very concerned there. And Joel, I don't know how much time we have, but we do need to hit like those other ones just real quickly.
We have Kerri, you have all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. I'm worried about Koff and Mac. I don't want them hating me and yelling at me, but I don't want Koff. Koff is good with weapons. I gotta be careful. Also with self-defense. By the way, Jay says this is so incredible. I thought someone said he wouldn't talk to Kerri. Well, you never know. Michelle Abbott says this is fascinating. I love her. I gotta be honest. I've never met Koff, Mac, or Kerri in person, but I do love all three of them, and I feel like we know each other so well. I'm excited to meet them all at CrimeCon for the first time in person. But I just can't get. I'm like I can't get over Kerri. That's the truth, and it's just I just cannot. There's no way to put yourself in her shoes, right? It's just impossible. But I just can't imagine doing what she does every day with the stuff that she brings with her. It's wild. A lot of people, Kerri, and I know this part is sensitive, but a lot of people have asked how your mom and brother have done since these new revelations. You can comment or not comment, but I just wanted to throw that out there as an opportunity, and then whatever you want to get to next.
I'm not at liberty to comment about that, and let's leave it at that. And it's my hope that my family's privacy is being respected because that's what all they've asked for. Right now, I believe the media is respecting it. It's a lot different nowadays. It's really nice to see. And I'm being told I'm a small part of that change about speaking up for families like mine and Asa's. Now, I got some flack for speaking up about Asa and her children. I literally was in Manhattan 3 weeks ago on like the highest levels of Long Island media. Then I was hit by some family victims. I literally stepped back from Long Island because like other people can go help Asa and her family. There's other people taking care of them. and there's other victim families. And so I made the decision to step back there because there's no reason for me to be a lightning rod. I literally had victim families of Long Island screaming at me on Twitter. That's my reality. The reality is that I'm such a high profile figure. If this continues, I might have to leave social media, and I don't want to because I love it and I love true crime. The reality is I'm a big enough person. I will just step back if I'm being yelled at by victim families, murder victim families. So the reality is, and this is the first time I've spoken about this too, Joel. So this is just here, really. I'm still yelled at sometimes by my dad's 7 families, and I understand it's just a transference of pain. It's not personal. I'm not going to go cover some other case, even if it means I don't do Manhattan media. And by the way, I'm not paid for that, guys. If I'm going to be yelled at by other victim families. Now, I was just trying to stand up for Asa, but I also stand up for those families. And it's not okay to transfer and abuse, be verbal abusive. I don't care what you're going through. I still go through it with my dad's cases. I ain't doing it. I'm sorry. I ain't doing it for these other families. I've done everything correct. I toe the line every day. Koff and Mac will tell you how much I toe the line and how exhausting it is. And so when I got hit with COVID, when I got back from New York, I was in the hospital. And then all of this dad stuff came out. And Joel will tell you, everybody will tell you on the show, I've been pulled about 500 ways into 500 things. The reality is I don't belong on those right now. I belong on my dad's cases, and that's it. And so I've literally had to step back from active missing persons, domestic cases, everything. One, because I was being torn apart. I am one person. Reality is I am the only person that I am a key. I'm not the only key to my dad, but I'm a very important key. So that is where my focus is. And so when I step away from social media, or I say my DMs close, like it's because of my mental health. Like literally, I got out of the hospital, and then Sunday I was notified of another case, and it's Oklahoma number 2. And that's all I can say right now. Okay, guys, because I'm not at liberty. And so my reality is I'm over here trying to solve Oklahoma number 2. Right. And they have to do it to the level of saying like colors of things, because we have to like take my memories and what's being put into evidence or somebody else's memory. And then we've got to see if those match. Okay. So on Sunday, when I stepped away, it's for good reason. But on Monday night, my sheriff put a whole bunch of stuff on record, and nobody paid attention today. I literally was up last night. I grabbed all that new information because now it's on record, because now I can talk about it. I stayed up late. I tweeted it out. I sent it to 15 outlets, and not one outlet paid attention today. I'm literally texting my investigative journalist. I'm like, why are you guys not paying attention? I don't know, Joel.
Well, Meg P knows. She says, Kerri, you're a strong, smart, and kind woman. I wish I could give you a hug. Just know STS supports and loves you. Mac, Kerri describes this visit with her dad, which I don't know why I'm not crying, but it was very emotional. Do you think, he sounds, kind of old and decrepit now, and people do have those moments in life where they look back on their life and they question what they did. He's a different kind of person, psychopath, sociopath, whatever you want to label him. And by the way, my dad was a psychiatrist for over 40 years, and my dad didn't believe in labels for the most part. I'm wondering, do you think there's any way Dennis Rader, as he's coming closer to the end, has some sort of, some sort of moment where, I don't know if coming clean is necessarily the correct word, but, where he, has a come to Jesus moment, maybe where he, he says the end is near, and, maybe I really screwed up in this lifetime, and this is what I did. And do we ever see something resembling that at all? I know a lot of people are going to say I'm insane. Dumb question. Why even ask it? But what about these weak moments in life when you get older and you get to those points?
Well, I mean, again, I'm going to defer to what Kerri said. You've got somebody that spends 99% of the time alone. He doesn't see other people. He has no interaction. Nobody's hugging him. Nobody is comforting him. Nobody is giving him care. He doesn't have, the laughter of children. He doesn't get to hold a baby. He doesn't have a pet. So a lot of these things that kind of give you that, the best of humanity, he doesn't get access to any of that. He has not seen his daughter in 18 years. He didn't know she was coming. So when she walked in the room, it literally took him a second. And when he realized who she was, I think that would be overwhelming for anyone. And, in my world, I have seen more than once where somebody can be more than one thing at the same time. It's just possible. And it's not always negative. I mean, it can be extraordinarily fabulous too, but you might have somebody that's a rocket scientist that also can write music. You might have somebody that's a serial killer that loves their children. It can happen. I think you're listening to, again, the only witness that can tell you. I think there's a lot we can learn from people like Kathy Kleiner, Kerri, these people that have come into contact with a killer. Delphi, when Libby recorded him, if you had asked the 15-year-old me, I would have told you, oh my gosh, it would be a raging, out of control killer. But Ted Bundy and BTK and the Delphi killer that's on tape, they sound super calm. They're not out of control. He literally says down the hill like it's nothing. Kathy Kleiner will tell you Ted Bundy never said a word to her. So can they be two things at the same time that seem opposite? Absolutely.
L. Rose says, it's your purpose, Kerri. You're right where you need to be. Lord bless you. Jennifer Koffendorfer, from an investigative standpoint, Kerri talked so eloquently about meeting her dad in prison. I would have to assume that meeting was recorded, unless I'm wrong, Kerri. But from an investigative standpoint, Jennifer, you're the lead investigator. How many times are you going back and watching that meeting to see if he said something or did something like the infinite zeros or the circling zeros to see if it's a clue, if there is a clue in there?
Well, certainly I'm having that transcribed and I'm watching it multiple times and looking for any clues that might have been wiggled in those rabbit holes that Kerri described. Because something might fit with the evidence they have that might be meaningful, especially when you look also at the writings and the cold case information that they have before them. Remember, he wants to be interviewed. He wants Kerri to come back. He wants to be in the limelight again, but he wants it on his own terms, I believe. So I'm watching that every minute of it, every second.
Koff, same question to you. Am I totally insane? Is there any chance that as Dennis Rader creeps closer to the end that you could have a moment where he either comes clean or says he's sorry or anything along those lines as he feels his own mortality?
Joel, if that's to me, no. I don't think he ever comes clean. That's not that part of the compartment doesn't care. And no, that's what I think.
And
Joel, can I just jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Just remember, he confessed the first time. He wants you to know whether it's to be a good person or whether it's to, again, be in control and tell my story my way. But he absolutely will talk to Kerri. He will absolutely, I think, at some point, tell law enforcement once they get to showing everything they have and lay it out, just like he did in 2005. He couldn't even stop talking in court.
Oh, sorry. I thought the question was come clean, like with his conscience. Feel sorry, feel bad.
That is what I meant. And look right here. Someone says, and this is a fair comment, I really wish you wouldn't give Kerri false hope by saying that. I think this is what she's talking about. I'm not giving anyone false hope. I'm just asking the question. But the interesting part is he's such a different mind than the rest of our minds. It's not a normal mind. So and I'm not normal, but in my quote unquote normal mind, I would want to get it out before I died. Right. But everyone here, the experts are telling me, not the case with someone like Dennis Rader. Again, my father, who's a very smart man, my hero, a psychiatrist for over 40 years, he tried not to label people. He tried to look at people individually. And he would say, you don't know. Maybe he will turn one day and come clean, but you don't know. And the chances, it seems like, are very, very slim in this case. I just want to bring up one thing quickly, and I'm going to let Kerri get to everything that she wants to get out. But Tawana Bollinger, she is Cyndi Kinney's friend. This is the young cheerleader, 16, who went missing from the laundromat in Osage County. And she was interviewed just recently. And she said, my friends and I drove around for years and years after that, every back road, every lake road, every oil lease, trying to find her, trying to find anything out of the ordinary. We just wanted to find Cyndi, and we just never had any luck. I can still see that little girl bebopping down them hallways, and she's just so outgoing and always laughing and kidding. And at games, she was just fire. She'd get out there and get cheering. She was just so cute. So obviously, we got to keep in, all the victims of the family and friends of the victims too, who are still suffering all these years later. Kerri, I know there are a couple things you wanted to, Kerri. So take over the show and tell us what you want to talk about.
I'm over here typing notes, guys, as these guys experts talk. Oil lease I found interesting. So there's a lot of oil land in Oklahoma and Kansas. So that's a good idea. I'll tell my guys to, they probably have already mapped out the oil leases, but I targeted on the oil lease. So I made a little note. So here's where we are. So it's complicated for me to on record stuff because I've been in this stuff for months. So I don't even know what's on and off, guys. And I'm trying to do my best job not to mess up with active investigations. And I've been having talks with Mac and Koff about how do you do this? Because has there ever really been anybody, a kid like me, trying to solve their own dad's serial killer crimes, actively involved in it, a public figure being pulled into national media? I'm literally breaking news most nights. And I'm a victim and I'm a witness. And then I don't want to mess up investigations, right? And so it's hard for me to remember. I had some friends say, well, put it on color paper, right? So if you're talking to your sheriff, put it on one color piece of paper. And then when you go to media, that's off. Reality is, with technology, I'm having to Google, okay, what did my sheriff say today, right? So last night I was trying to figure out what did my sheriff say so I can on record it, because I can't on record it until he does. Anyway, so where we're at with the investigation, we have Cyndi Kinney missing 76 from Pawhuska. We're looking for her body. Okay, speculative that my father could have done that based on notes and some other evidence. I think we're going to need to find her. It's going to be a little bit okay on that one. Shauna Garber, that came to light because of stuff in my dad's evidence and what my investigators were doing. We have some things we need to test in Garber. Okay. So right now we have a lot of circumstantial evidence in Garber. If we can get those bondage materials tested, we're going to be making really good progress there. And we just got some new developments on that one. So like Joel said, my dad was actively working in Missouri. He was also camping not far from there. So that one, what's difficult, guys, is we're talking interagencies. And so Osage is the ones that opened these, but Osage's responsibility is only Kinney, correct? And so Garber falls under a whole nother state and a whole nother agency. And so that's why I'm saying we need a task force at the federal level, because my dad is being offered tri-state immunity, but he's not cooperating. We need a federal task force that can oversee everything, because we've got, like Max said, there might be a literature over here. There might be a date over here. There might be a body over here. There might be my memory. And somehow we got to get everybody to communicate together and get on the same page. And that's what we're working on right now. Now, there's other active investigations going on. And so where we're at right now on record, there is a missing woman out in Hayes, 1983. I am not at liberty to discuss her name. Once if somebody does, then I can. As Eddie said last night, he maybe has uncovered something in records, right? But that missing person in Hayes belongs to Hayes. Okay. So if Hayes isn't like have the capability to go look for her, or they don't think it is that case, or they're not wanting whatever, it gets really complicated, right? And so he was saying, we don't want to upset families. And so my dad is the one that released Kinney and Garber. Okay. He's the one that released those names to the media. It was not the investigation. Dad said, hey, they came in, they talked to me. So there's a lot of other things going on, but we're trying to be really careful. Project Bell, we believe matches a murdered woman in Kansas around 1990. Okay. So that one could be developing. And then there is a fifth case, we're calling Oklahoma 2. Again, that one falls under a different agency than Osage. And so we have to wait for these agencies, right? And so it's really complicated. And I'm really relying on people like Mac and Jen to kind of help me figure out how do I navigate media. And I've already told my team, look, if you got to black me out, just text me and I'll black out. And honestly, the reality is because it's actually safer for me to come on with Joel and people like this, even if it's long form, because I'm safe here and I'm not going to be pressed from an anchor desk live, you know? And so like, this is really like the first time I've been on camera with this. And like, this isn't like a soundbite zone for me.
And it should not be. And we appreciate you coming on here. I made some notes of what Gary Upton had to say, and then we're going to start to wrap this up. He is the Osage, Oklahoma County Undersheriff. His name is Gary Upton, and he was asked about Kerri, and he said she's been a great help to law enforcement. She has helped us make sense of these journals and these timelines because she's lived with him and knew a lot of his comings and goings. It took her a long time to come to grips with this part of her healing process. Her journey to healing has been in trying to help, and we're letting her have it to whatever degree that she wants. Jennifer Koffendorfer, what kind of gift is it if you're an investigator and you have someone with Kerri's knowledge base coming into your investigation to help you?
It is irreplaceable. It's very important because, as you said, the history is there, the familiarity is there. She's lived this, and she cared more than anyone, any investigator ever involved, about all of these details. So she's like a walking encyclopedia, really, when it comes to the details of previous victims, modus operandi, details about her dad's personality, all these details about all of these cases. And those are, she mentioned being a key. She is a key because those details help unlock these other cases that they're investigating.
Jolene says her memory is insane. Kerri, anything else that you want to touch on? I'm going to give you a final thought, but anything else like for Mac or Koff in terms of where you're at now with the investigation that you want to make sure we put out there tonight?
Well, I would like to hear both of their, like, how do we go forward? Because like the interagency stuff and how do you work cold cases? Like Mac runs a whole institute on this. Like, how do you get this agency to cooperate when you know that evidence is there? As a public figure and as his daughter, I have to learn to be more patient. Obviously, I'm not a very patient person. I want to tweet something out today. I like literally had a conversation with the sheriff, and he was like, "Okay, rein that in and put a pin in it." And then, you know, like I'm learning every day constantly, because you guys all know I'm wild horses and I want to run everything like quickly. And I have adults, because I feel like a kid, like they're like, rein that in, hold it, you know. And then the other reality is he's over there on recording stuff and I can't even keep up with the man. I'm frustrated as Dennis's kid. Like, here's what's important. We'll talk more, Joel. I think we're going to be doing this regularly. We're going to have to.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that. So Kerri and I have talked offline. This looks like it is just heating up, and you know, Kerri and I have talked about her coming on here on a consistent basis in regards to this investigation and keeping you guys all in the mix. And I think Koff and Mac are excellent wing women, and they keep us in line. So we're going to try to do this as frequently as Kerri is able to, and as quickly as the news comes out. If news comes out, in the next couple of days, maybe we'll do it again next week. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But go ahead, Kerri.
I think there's a lot more we can talk about as we go forward with prison and as things and develop. But I think what's really important is people were not getting my tone with some article that was out there just because they were just reading it, right? I had the first time I saw my dad, it was like about an hour and a half. Like he had lifted the BTK mask. We were down on the rabbit holes. We had a lot of notes. We were discussing Garber, Kinney, some other things. I'm like, I knew I was running out of time. Investigators were trying to buy me more time. There's very strict rules with the warden about time, and you have to stick to them. So they were trying to buy me time, and I finally just said, look, Dad, I said, you know what? I love you. I've always loved you. I'm okay with it. Okay. When I'm saying, oh, I'm okay with it, I'm just like accepting it, right? That like Asa, her and Humerin, the night Rex was arrested, she goes, it is what it is. And God bless her. Like, how many times do I say that all the time? It is what it is. And once you have to be in reality land, you can't live in fantasy land. I wish I was just some normal kid and I had my dad and I didn't have this. But reality is I have this and I had to accept that. So what I'm saying, it's okay. I'm not saying, of course, what he did is okay. Absolutely not. I'm just saying that I am okay with it. I had to go in there not sad, not mad, not angry. I honestly was notified of very severe stuff the night before that's personally affected me that I'm not even ready to talk about, but I still had to wall that off and go in there and be an investigator. So I put my investigator hat on. I was a daughter and then I switched to investigator. So I said, okay, I love you. I'm okay with it. We're good. I said, we're good. I'm not holding anything against you. We're good. Okay. The reality is that we thought you had been very cooperative and we appreciated that. Now we think you've been playing he's kept playing his games, guys. He's been playing games since he was 8 years old until today, 70 years of games. Okay. Law enforcement said, we're done with your games. They let him talk for 30 hours, and they locked him away. Okay. He's still been playing that game. He is 18 years ahead of all of us on his 20D chess. Okay. Now we're bringing people in like me to play 20D chess with him, and we're cracking him. And I said, look, you might be innocent and I'll defend you, but if you touch one more hair on anyone's head, I'm nailing you to the wall. And I literally said that to him. And then I stood up. I go to hug him and he goes, when did you get so big? And I was like, Dad, like, are you telling me I'm fat? Because, like, I'm a big person. I'm 5'9". I'm substantial. And I was like, the investigators were laughing because I was like, Dad, are you saying I'm fat? And he's like, but I think he meant big, like tall, like mature, like I wasn't a little girl anymore. And he was like, when did you get so big? Because he's just this cowering little man. And I reached over and I hugged him and he kissed me goodbye. And then I said, I'll see you later, Dad. And I said, I'll be back. And I walked out and then I turned back around. And the second time when I went back in, he goes, when you turned back around, I knew you meant that you were going to come see me again. And so I just wanted to make it clear to him that we're like deadly serious. And so when people are over there at Twitter telling me like I'm trying to like ask for his comfort, I am not. Like when I went back the second time, we were trying to get him to get immunity. And I asked him about his jail cell and he was complaining about some air vent that's too cold. And so I told my team, I said, look, if we're trying to get him to cooperate, can we make things just a tiny little bit more comfortable for him to make him more willing to cooperate so we can find Cynthia Kinney's body if he killed her? So like there's this air vent, right? And so we can make that air vent more comfortable, or now that he's not cooperating, we can twist the screws and we can make it colder. That's the reality. So when I'm tweeting out that if he's not going to cooperate, he's going to wake up in a jail cell in Missouri or Oklahoma, I'm serious. Like that, we could arrest him today on a couple of things at least, and we can take control. My team can. That's the reality. So he's done. He's no longer in charge. there's literally like a new sheriff in town.
Well said. My take on So Big is that you become so strong and brave in comparison to him. Mac, we'll start to wrap it up. For those who don't know, Mac does everything in the world. Cold Case Foundation, active crime scene investigator, wins Emmys at CBS in Atlanta. When she's not winning Emmys, she's being a good mom. She does it all. Mac, your final thoughts on this super powerful show. Man, Kerri is she's powerful. Your final thoughts, Mac. Where does it head from your cold case sort of point of view?
I think law enforcement is going to continue to make these power plays. They're going to continue to release things that they know is going to get back to him. Then they're going to tee him up for Kerri to go back. And I think at that point, they're going to talk to him like, look, you interjected yourself with Rex Huberman. You made a call to the media to say, hey, I think this guy's my clone. You're doing that to stay relevant. Well, let us help you stay relevant. Give us the others. And I think that, for him, again, he's seen his child differently, but I think that he also understands that he has the opportunity, and possibly for the very last time, to do the right thing. And this is it. I mean, they're not coming back. So I think that's going to be a really good thing. And I can't thank you enough, Joel, for the care and concern that you show Kerri and other victims. And, I've never had an opportunity to be on set or anything with Koff before. But again, with her background and her giving Kerri advice, I think what people are seeing is this rally for the right reason at the right time for the right person. So I can't say enough about Kerri, the bravery, putting herself at risk, her health, her mental health, her physical health, all of it. So I have nothing but accolades for everybody that I'm looking at right now, period.
COE, thank you for your courage, Kerri, grace and knowledge. STS Nation sends you love. That is the consensus across the board. Koff, someone had an interesting comment. They said that it's clear that Dennis Rader will only speak to his daughter. He speaks to other people, but give you the implication, will give you the information. And someone suggested to Kerri to tell her dad, if you don't give us the goods, you're not going to see me again. Is that a bad strategy? Is that something? Go ahead, Kerri. Go ahead, Kerri.
No, I will not be used as a power play like a pawn. He called my family a pawn when he was sentenced in 2005. And it broke me, but I think he was trying to protect us, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to think that we were a pawn.
Yeah.
So no, I am not a pawn in this game. This is not a game. It is deadly serious. He plays games. Now he's up against me. He raised me to do this. He taught me cryptograms. He taught me logic puzzles. He had me shoot his murder weapons. He taught me how to fish with his murder knife. He taught me Stephen King. He taught me true crime. In his records, you literally see where we are watching a true crime movie and he noted it down. That's how impactful it was when we went to see something. Okay. You guys all know I've talked about all this stuff we've seen, and we'll get into that later. He's like the dark, guys, and I'm like the light. It was like he had done all this dark, and then somehow I was born, and he knew as soon as I was walking, he said he got busy chasing me, keeping me alive. Okay. But he knew what he had with me, and we were like two peas in a pod, and he raised me to go catch him. Okay. So no, we do not use me as a pawn. The reality is that he has Miranda and he has taken it with law enforcement. I'm not law enforcement. I was sitting there right when I went in the first time after I said, can we talk these cases? And he goes, well, I have Miranda. And I said, Dad, you don't have Miranda with me. I'm not law enforcement. I said, now you don't have to say one more word. You can tell me to leave. And he goes like this, because he's like, who is that? And it was like I was channeling my mama. And he was confused. Like he thought I was my mom all of a sudden, right? Because he's like, who is this? And he goes to his investigators and he calls them the secret police. and he calls the men that carry him around he calls them men in black, and he calls me a spy. He goes, I think you're a spy. And then he gave me a project name. I'm Project Visitors, or Project V for Victory. Okay. He literally gave me a project name as I was sitting across from him. And he looks at his investigators and he goes, is that true? I can't take Miranda with her? And they said, no, sir, she's not law enforcement. You can't take Miranda. You don't have to say another word to her, but you can't just sit there and take Miranda with her. And he was like, you could see that will. And he was like, oh, crap. And then he made that choice to talk to me. Now, there are other people, multiple investigators going in, talking to him, and they're doing their thing. I hope to get back in there. He's probably pretty ticked at me right now. We'll see if he even wants to see me.
The Advocate, this is a great thing. A Serial Killer's Daughter by Kerri Rawson. You want to support Kerri, buy the New York Times best-selling book, A Serial Killer's Daughter by Kerri. Mo Dean, America's favorite troll, says, I couldn't even troll today. It was so interesting. STS Nation guest knocked it out of the park. Thank you, Mo. Coffee, your final thoughts here, either investigative, from a human standpoint, anything you want to add, closing out.
I'll be very brief. Just 2 comments to Kerri. And of course, Kerri, I'd probably tell you this offline anyway. I probably have already told you this offline. As you go through this process, because it's going to be a process, there's a lot of, individuals they're looking at. Number one, it doesn't matter what other people think. I know that's so hard, but I just wish you would just block these people, and because they only are adding to your stress and sadness, and you don't have to prove yourself to them. So I just hope that they get off your grid. Number 2, I know you want to educate the public, and you want to let people know what's going on, because there is so much interest. But at the end of the day, your work needs to focus on what law enforcement and you are collaborating with. So your number one focus is, of course, helping to solve these cases. And so I just hate to see you have the onus of the pressures of the media, except when it is on your terms and you want to go to something specific or be in this community, right? Joel just provides such a safe place for these types of discussions. And finally, and gosh, I wasn't as brief as I meant to be. Finally, it's only when you deal with victims of violent crime that you can truly appreciate, I think, how strong Kerri is. Because other victims they become broken. And Kerri, you're not broken. You're better than ever.
Beautifully said. Publicly Buzz said, Kerri, you're amazing. The original tagline for our show, as you guys know, my mother's a Holocaust survivor, hidden when she was 4.5 years old to survive at 4.5, which is crazy. She always kind of half seriously, half jokingly says, we're all just trying to survive in a rough world, and we all have to help each other because life is rougher for some than others, but it is a beautiful life, as my mother also says. And it was a heavy night. It's a heavy, heavy night. We're all here for Kerri. It says, Kerri, you are the light. A very quick programming note. It's Family Week this week on STS. Tomorrow night, Dan Markel was brutally murdered in 2014. 2 hitmen. He was shot in his driveway. Looks like his ex-wife's family was responsible. The ex-brother-in-law is going on trial. And we have Dan Markel's mother, Ruth Markel, on the program tomorrow night. Kerri, I want to give you your final thoughts on this evening. And as you know, you've got an open invite, and then we will say an official goodbye.
Well, I think everybody, we're in this for the long haul, but what's really nice, maybe not nice is the right word. I didn't know who BTK was until 2004, and I was barely invested in it. I was living in Michigan. I was 26, barely married. I was a kid. Okay. when I was notified that Dad had murdered 10 people, well, 8, and then I gave him 9. We'll talk about that later, and then a 10th. We felt really alone. My family did. We dealt with so much, right? Like we were just hounded. It was just insane. We'll talk about all that later. Just think about what Ace's family went going through. But Ace's got it way worse than my family did. We were alone. FBI left us. Wichita left us. Now Wichita left us alone. But they kept eyes on us. I found out later Wichita was always protecting us. Wichita Eagle was always protecting us. Okay. I don't know what the FBI was doing. Who knows? Okay. But it was like all I ever wanted to do was help. Since I was 4 years old, I was reporting to my mom with my night terrors that there was a bad man in my house. Okay. We'll talk about that later. All I've ever wanted to do since I was 4 was help. I knew something was wrong in my house. I knew something was wrong with Dad. Okay. Since 2005, all I've ever wanted to do was help. And nobody ever asked me for help until June when I was flown into Osage and said, can you help us? Do you know what that did for me? It was like it integrated my core, like to be asked to help, be notified of what I was being notified, and then to go in and see my father for the first time in my whole goddamn life. It was like I took, sorry for the cussing, it was like I took everything I had wondered about my dad and wasn't sure of, and everything I wondered about me, and it was like, boom, we were together, and now Dad is Dad, and Dad is BTK, and Kerri is Kerri, and Kerri. Okay. So I'm not alone. Okay. I felt alone, and I'm not alone. I have all these people. I have the true crime community. I've got law enforcement. I've got so many people. I don't even know who I've got. Okay. So that's amazing. My family does too, if they need them. My final word is that my father has said 2 things that are important. He goes, it would be really nice to go out like a Roman candle, like, to have a bunch more. Not that he's not going to falsely take them. And we said, hey, Dad, if you want to go out like a Roman candle, we'll make sure you go out like a Roman candle, like confess. And we gotta make sure they're real, but go out like a Roman candle, Dad. We'll just throw you fireworks. And the other thing he goes, when I was back in there, he goes, you mean I could go from A to Z, like 50 years or whatever? And I said, yes, Dad. I said, I'll sit in here with the investigators and we will go from A to Z, and I will embed with you, and we'll hold a like Silence of the Lambs seminar, and we'll go from A to Z every project, Dad. So let's do it. Like let's go out like a Roman candle and let's go from A to Z.
Full circle. You heard Kerri say it right then and there. Since she was 4 years old, she knew something was wrong. She wanted to help, and now she's in her mid 40s years later, and she is come full circle. She's helping the investigation. I truly don't want people to share this because it is my show. I want people to share this to show people what Kerri's all about, and even bigger than that, what humanity is about underneath all this evil and horrible ness and these awful stories and killers or whatever the awful thing is. There's always great people, whether it be 9/11 where people come together, other tragic stories. You see what's going on in Maui. The world is coming together, but this is what humanity is underneath the evil. There's always good that outweighs the bad. So please share this show with other people, and till tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Love you, America. Love you, Kerri. Love you, Mac. Love you, Cough. Instead of cities and states, we're doing people today. Till next time.